Sego. When I utter this word amongst the Haudenosaunee people, there are layers of meaning that present themselves. As language is the keeper of our histories, the definition of the word Sego can be traced to a time when many nations walked this turtle island, and not all lived in harmony. When one encountered an unfamiliar face along the path, it was perhaps prudent to utter what is essentially a question. Is there still peace here? Sego Skanagawa. In more recent times, as a salutation, Sego has come to mean, do you have peace within? Less of a question and more of a benediction. Embedded in the language of this show, there are many stories and histories to uncover. Songide'ewin, literally translated from Ojibwe, is strength of heart. And what you're about to see will certainly reinforce for you that every artist and writer has brought their history with them, and each profoundly demonstrates a remarkable strength of heart. 3 years ago, Dr. Kristiina Montero, Faculty of Education, Laurier University, Dr. Carol Leclerc of Laurier University, and the Métis Women's Circle, and I sat down to discuss a project wherein we could bring a number of exciting parts together. I had 2 classes of Native Arts, and they were students who wanted to learn more about culture. The Métis Women's Circle had just secured a grant to bring Ojibwe artist Renee Mesheke, the first First Nations graduate of Sheridan College, into my classes. And Dr. Montero had education students who needed to learn about teaching from a First Nations perspective. 3 passionate women, creative juices flowing, optimal conditions for a perfect storm. I promptly whipped everybody up and left for a year of magical thinking. But the incredible people who performed in my stead have truly been responsible for the flourishing of this project. To Eric Fleming, who as a young man got a crash course in multitasking as only a woman could. Renee Mesheke, wizard of words and invoker of creativity. Rod Nedagog, who drummed, played, painted, and sang the spirit into it all. And Dr. Kristiina Montero, who has been the true midwife of this birth. Gichi Miigwech. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kristiina Montero.
Wow, this is pretty amazing to see everybody here, and I'm so honored to be standing in front of you, welcoming you to really what is it's been a wonderful journey. It's been a life-altering journey for me and for many others who have been part of this. And I'm so thankful to everyone, to Beth and to Renee and all of the students who have brought out their hearts and their souls onto canvas and into words and writing and shared with us some inner thoughts and inner voices. This all started when Renee and I sat down, and Joan in their living room, and we had a cup of tea with a little bit of apple strudel. And we just started brainstorming a little bit about how we can bring about some dialogue between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities. And working in a faculty of education, preparing teachers to work with students, and primarily these teachers are non-Aboriginal teachers. And through this time, we then schemed and said we need to contact Beth, and then Beth and I and Carol Leclerc sat down and did our share of scheming. Through all of this, we brought together pre-service Bachelor of Education students and students at Sir John A. Macdonald, and we painted together. And we painted so that in the space of what I called these artistic silences, some really powerful dialogues happened. We spoke with each other, touching our hearts and our souls, and sometimes no words were ever uttered. But there was understanding that happened. After this time, after the paintings were completed, we then took the paintings to the Contemporary Voices class, the Aboriginal English class at the high school, and worked with Christina Murphy. And we created some poems with the students. Students created poems by making written responses, evoking thoughts and feelings and ideas that occurred when they looked at the paintings coming from within themselves. And so those are the pieces of poetry that you will see that are adjoined to some of the paintings. We then schemed some more, and we had the next generation of paintings and poetry with new artistic mentors. And all of this came to be what is songide'ewin, Aboriginal narratives. In all of this, as I consider about what all of this means within the connection between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities, I think that it is a way to dispel myths and stereotypes about Aboriginal communities through arts-based civic dialogue. I think it's a powerful way. And I think about the lengthy and ongoing dialogues among Aboriginal peoples of Canada and their allies about inequitable conditions of public education, healthcare, living conditions, social issues of poverty, unacceptable high school attrition rates, and low post-secondary retention rates. All of these issues are slowly weaving their way into the awareness and social consciousness of all Canadians, but not quickly enough. Recent public opinion polls conducted in June 2012 continue to demonstrate that Canadians tend to believe many myths and negative stereotypes of Aboriginal people. For example, more than half of those polled believed Aboriginal people living in Canada receive too much support from Canadian taxpayers and that the financial support received is poorly managed. This coming from an article by Teresa Smith in 2012. In response to these polls, Sean Inachunatleo, National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, was quoted saying, "It is everyone's responsibility to overcome the myths and the stereotypes that have for too long characterized the relationship between First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people and Canada." Other Aboriginal leaders profiled in Smith's article also echoed Atleo's sentiments. For decades, the awareness and social consciousness of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Canadians has subscribed to a master narrative that Aboriginal worldviews, teachings, cultures, languages, arts, literacies, and dances were inferior to those encompassed by colonial Western ideologies. Episkinu adds to that. These myths and stereotypes have been characterized as a dark shadow of colonization that impact those living in Canada, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. The shadow of colonization caused by misinformation, misunderstanding, ignorance, and fear can and must be addressed. Through activist research and social conscious awareness campaigns, the world is learning about the realities of Aboriginal life in Canada, such as the dreadful legacy of residential schools, social impact of inadequate funding of schools on First Nations reserves, and the inhumane third world-like living conditions on reserves. Activist research allows for civic dialogue to occur, and this type of civic dialogue that occurs within this art exhibit that we have here. This dialogue can help clear the fog of misinformation and ignorance. Civic dialogue is when people explore the dimensions of a civic or social issue, policy, or decision of consequence to their lives, communities, and society. It is a democratic act built around the principles of dialogism and critical pedagogy. Dialogue here is defined as the focused conversation, engaged in intentionally with the goal of increasing understanding, addressing problems, and questioning thoughts or actions. Dialogue is one that engages the heart as well as the mind and is different from ordinary everyday conversation in that dialogue has a focus and a purpose. The arts have the potential to address the power and to build community, citizenship, and resiliency. And therefore, through this exhibit, we can all engage in meaningful arts-based dialogue about Aboriginal teachings, worldviews, cultures, languages, and identities. Through the visual and literary art in this exhibit, the participants in songide'ewin project have started a powerful dialogue. And now it's up to you, the attendee, the guests of this exhibit, to join and continue the dialogue, not only in the space of this gallery, but in other public spaces, at work and at school. As you view the exhibit, we invite you to pay attention to your feelings and ideas that emerge. Respond to your senses. What do you see, hear, smell, taste, and/or feel? Focus on the private as well as the public aspects of meaning. Then we ask you to write your thoughts on these cards that are purposefully displayed throughout the exhibit. Write your thoughts and pin them to the cork boards that are around. There are pins and pencils and these cards. And become part of our exhibit. Become part of our learning and become part of our stories. Thank you.